one of the things that I've always found interesting is how athletes uniquely motivate themselves. And sometimes sometimes motivation comes from the very, you know what? I'm married to my profession. I'm getting up, I'm running, I'm lifting, I'm stretching, I'm doing what I have to do to prep for the season. That's probably applies to most athletes. But then there's other athletes who need to either trick themselves or additionally motivate themselves. What is Ezekiel Elliott talking about?
I don't know, man. Look, Zeke is looking at some comments or rankings that have been put out by people who are just putting out purely subjective interpretations of football players, of running backs, and it's really like a fantasy football thing more than anything, or like a gambling thing or a betting thing, right? If I'm going to pick a guy on a given Sunday afternoon, who am I going to take? Most people are going to say Christian McCaffrey because that dude's going to get you, 150 or 60 all-purpose yards every single weekend. He's going to score a couple touchdowns. They feed him the rock. He stays on the field 100% of the time. And so if you're doing an evaluation, who are the best running backs in the National Football League? Christian McCaffrey and SAQUON Barkley. And so Zeke sees all of this as if they're talking about who's most valuable to their team. Without them, their team wouldn't function. It's likely Zeke, by the way. And he gets offended by it because he's getting disrespected, so to speak. But at the end of the day, we know what Zeke is worth. His statistics speak for themselves. He led the league in rushing, which is hard to do as a rookie. And then he would have done it his second year if he hadn't got suspended. I think he did it again his third year, right? So he's got a bunch of bold in those first 3 years of his first 4 years, I should say, of his career. And so he's using this to gas himself up. Like, you just wait and see now. And if that's what he needs to do, good for him. And guess what? The Cowboys need it because of all the acrimony that's coming from their quarterback not getting signed.
Which we'll get to next segment, obviously. No resolution in terms of long-term contract with Dak and the Dallas Cowboys. But, Cowboy fans can only hope that Zeke comes flying out of the tunnel week one the way he came flying out of the social media tunnel last night. How about this barrage of tweets? Let me give you a little sampling, all right? There's a lot of great backs in this league, but I don't understand why the media has to talk down on my game just to uplift other backs. We're all talented football players and can ball.
This is true. That's a good one.
That is a fair statement. That's true. Now he starts getting a little bit more emboldened to defend himself, which is fine. He says, and he's right here too. He says, check the stats. Since I entered this league, I've dominated year in and year out. Put some respect on my name. Respected Cap, so you know he means business. Now he's getting a little philosophical. He says, women lie, men lie. The stats don't. Go do your homework. And now you got me thinking a little bit. Then he writes, almost 1,800 scrimmage yards and 14 touchdowns with no camp, and now I'm not the same back. And then there was a couple more. Listen, I haven't noticed a diminished perception of Zeke. What I've noticed, rather, is an elevated perception of guys who deserve it. You just mentioned McCaffrey, but Derrick Henry led the league in total rushing yards a year ago. He was over 5 yards a carry. He had 16 touchdowns rushing. In the playoffs, he had 34 carries and $182 against the Pats in the wild card. In the next game, in the divisional round, he had 30 carries for $195. Nick Chubb had 1,500 yards. McCaffrey, we know what he does. Aaron Jones ran for 16 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook had 50-plus receptions, 13 touchdowns. He missed a couple of games as well.
That's right.
Kamara's a beast. Saquon's a beast. Zeke is terrific, but he's got company.
Yeah, he's got company. And you didn't even mention Derrick Henry's last game, Week 17. He rushed for 211 yards, man. Rush for 200 yards is hard to do in the National Football League.
How many times did you do it? 5?
I did it 5 times. The record is 6. I think Adrian Peterson... OJ has the record. It's 6, and someone tied him. I think it was AP. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. But
so
it's hard. It's second, but really third. So it's.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but it's hard to do, right? Just because when you're on the gate a day like that, and sometimes they just happen. You just come out of the gate, and it's like, dude, that play worked, and that play worked, and that play worked again. We just keep running the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
But eventually, a defensive coordinator is going to say, all right, I'm shutting you down, man. Whatever we got to do to keep you from doing what you do, somebody else can beat us, right? Amani can go, catch 3 touchdown passes, but you are not going to beat us. That's what defensive coordinators do when they get pissed off when someone's running all over them. And so Derrick Henry proved that even last season, at the end of the year and in the postseason, defensive coordinators are loading a box. They're putting 8, sometimes 9 guys peeking in there to deter them from running the football. They just Ryan Tannehill turns right around, hands it off, and he still goes and rushes for 180, 190 yards. That's special, and that's why he gets rewarded, and that's what with the new contract. But that's also why he gets elevated, right? When you realize how hard it is. So it's not a knock. I agree with you. It's not a knock on Zeke.
No.
It's just accept that there are some studs at the position, which defies, interestingly, BT, this narrative that running backs don't help you in the National Football League. In some places, maybe they don't. In New England, maybe you don't need them. But in a lot of places, like in Tennessee, without Derrick Henry, they are not the same team.
No, they're not. Tannehill's not the same guy. Vrabel will be perceived differently, rightly or wrongly. He would be. They wouldn't have as many wins.
That's right.
It's funny too. You talk about going for 2 bills and just how tough it is. I would liken it to, Barry Bonds back in the day, or some fierce hitter who's just wearing out the entire staff. And you know what? Put 4 fingers up. We're walking this dude. I don't care who's behind him.
Yeah.
If he's going to beat us, we're going to try. He's going to have to beat us, because this guy, is 7 for 12 in the 3-game series with 5 jacks and 9 ribbies, and we can't have this anymore. And then the other aspect too, how difficult it is to go for 200 is that. There's just the reliance on the passing game.
Yeah.
So I know when you whomever rips off 200 yards, it's not like you're going 3 yards here, 5 yards here, 4 yards here, 6. I mean, you're going to rip off multiple long runs, probably 1 or 2 to the house.
It takes at least 2 40-yarders or a 60-something yarder. Like, you got to get
a gash.
You got to get like 20% of it in one play. Otherwise, it's just really hard, right? Or probably more like 30% of it you got to get in one play. Otherwise, just not enough plays, not enough carries to go around to get you 200 yards. And by the way, at 250 something pounds, Derrick Henry would do that, right? Yeah. He's ripping off 40-yarders and 50-yarders.
That's how he won the rushing title, that long run.
That's exactly right. As a running the clock out, he ripped off the 50-something-yarder. And look, Zeke does do that as well. And so Zeke is in that conversation when I talk about game changers at the running back position. There's some players who you look at and you go look at their stats and like, oh, he averaged 4.6 yards a carry. Oh, man, he's pretty good. Oh, he averaged 4.2. He catches 50, 60 balls a season. I mean, he's a good player. But to me, in order to be in that elite category, where Zeke definitely is, because he catches more passes than he gets credit for.
50-something.
Exactly. So he's in that elite category. McCaffrey's in that category. Saquon Barkley's in that category. Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Kamara, even Nick Chubb to an extent. Yep. If you can rip through a hole, break a tackle, and go 60 yards for a touchdown, that's game-changing. And those are the guys that get paid at the running back position in the National Football League. This old standard that we had, you average over 4 yards a carry and you're pretty durable and, you get some clouds of dust. That's anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. It's the guys that can break open a game and crush the soul of the other team. Those are the ones that you want to have. And if they do it on a consistent basis, like all the guys that we're talking about, you pay them.
So let me put it this way to you, Teak. Let's forget, because listen, Zeke is right. What he's done, number one, it's already done, quite literally, but it's well known, and he just burst on the scene, and he was beasting and balling from day one. But if I ask you, Teak, if I say, all right, let's take an offensive line that's not quite as good as, even though there's a little attrition up front, we all know that, but not quite as good as Dallas, the last couple of years, and certainly much better than like the Jets, which was awful last year. Take a middle-of-the-road offensive line, a top 15 quarterback, but not necessarily top 5 or 7, in that range, really, really good, but maybe not among the best. And I said, all right, T, going into this season and moving forward for the next 2 years, forgetting what's transpired in the past, I want to hear the order of preference from you, and I want to hear when you get to Zeke.
Yeah.
I got the pen, I got the paper, start going.
I'm biased here because I love Saquon. So
taking Saquon number 1?
No, I'm probably going to take Christian McCaffrey number 1, even though I love Saquon. He's my dude, and he plays for the Giants. But Christian McCaffrey just gives you so many options. You can do anything with him. So Christian McCaffrey is 1. It's why he's paid that way. Saquon would be 2 for me. Okay. Because I love their old school style. I always like to put Derrick Henry in this conversation, even though people will more likely put him like at 5 or 6. But I put him at high because he breaks tackles. He is a great 4-minute running back. 4-minute running back. You got to run the clock out. Just don't turn it over. Pound people. Oh, and by the way, you want to go to the house? Go to the house and put the final nail in the coffin. That's Derrick Henry. Then I'll go Zeke, and then Nick Chubb is there as well. Kamara, I love, but I haven't seen him be the guy. You know what I mean? I need you to take 30 carries a game and catch 6 or 7 passes. And it's smart on Sean Payton that he's not doing that, because he'll be an impactful player for a really long time. But I'm talking about the breadwinners, like the guys that are our game plan is going to be wrapped around this guy. Put a big circle on this dude. Everybody knows what's happening, and he's going to deliver. Those are the guys that I put on that list.
Did you intentionally gloss over Dalvin Cook, or did he just slip your mind?
No, not really. I love Dalvin Cook. He's got to do it one more year for me, because he started off on a rocket ship, and this kid's going to be the steal of the draft, right? And then he tore his ACL, took some time to get back. He came back last year and looked really, really good, but do it again. All these other guys have been pretty consistent.